Log into gyroscopeme.com, the hottest online radio station in the world. GS Radio all day, all night, worldwide. Powered by Gyroscope Media Group, LLC.
GS Radio, the best internet radio station worldwide. Providing the best in music and talk shows. Go to www.gsradionj.com and check out the best internet station in the world. You're listening to GS Radio, internet radio station powered by GMG, LLC.
In the beginning there was Jack, and Jack had a groove. And after a while, a deep sleep fell upon him, and he went looking for a new groove. He began looking for a new nation, and it had to be a soulful nation. And he found it, and it was Soulful House Nation. And he saw a building. It was a tall building. It had 10 stories, and he entered the building and got on the elevator and pushed the 10th floor. But it stopped on the 8th floor. And that's where he found his new groove. And he began to jack and jack and jack and jack. And he knew that this was it. It was Soulful House Nation on the 8th floor. Get ready, get ready, get ready.
Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. DJ Dan. Soulful House Nation coming to you live from the 8th floor. I am the unusual suspect. This is Soulful House Nation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got another one. We got another great show. What we're going to do, quick recap, to go back and check out last week's show. We had Zaylin on. Then we're going to play the number one song according to Track Source. After that, we're going to give you some 8th floor news. We'll play the old school track. And after that, it will be the interview with our special guest. So, the hottest song according to Track Source is by Pat Bedeau and Kaylee. And the name of the track is called Worthy. Now, before we play it, I just want to let you know we have interviewed Pat Bedeau in the past. Also, too, just want to let you know that we are on Facebook, of course. We're on YouTube. We're on Vimeo. We're on X. And a whole bunch of other places. And I want to just give a big shout out to our vocal drop. The gentleman who did the vocal drop. And I found out this week that he has passed. His name's Chuck Roberts, out of Chicago. And it kind of struck me because I didn't know. I talked to him a couple times a year. I hadn't talked to him in a little while. But certainly I talked to him probably in the first quarter of last year, give or take in that range. And I think it's this Wednesday or Thursday, I found out he was gone. So, bless his soul in heaven. I know he was a godly man. So I just, again, it shocked me. Also want to give a big shout out to King T Finesse and Area Shantae for doing our theme song. In addition to that, I got the newest track by King T Finesse coming up as our song of the week. It's called Walk Into the Light, and Moon Blue does the vocals on it. So Chuck, play a little bit of the number one song according to Track Source. It's by Pat Bedeau and Kaylee, and it's called Worthy. And as usual, we only play a little snippet of it because Facebook's the nasty, nasty little habit of shutting us down and muting us out. Chuck? Well, we're going to fade it down only because Facebook, this nasty, nasty little habit, are shutting us down and muting us out. There are vocals. So, let me just give you a couple little updates. New music. King T Finesse and Moon Blue on the vocals called Walk Into the Light. Also, too, Jeffrey C. And just want to wish him condolences. He just lost his dad. He did a track along with Coflow. It's called Valentina. Today, our special guest will be DJ BISKIT, and we have a surprise next week for you. So it's all good. And then we got some more stuff coming. So we got a lot of stuff. And I just made contact with another person that is big. So, chat, let's do this. Let's play our old school track of the week. And as usual, we only play a little snippet because, Facebook is this nasty, nasty little habit of shutting us down and muting us out. And it's called Days Like This by Spinner. Chat. And the way. Well, folks, as usual, we're going to fade it down and fade it out. And then we're going to come on with our special guest here. So, Jack, why don't you start the interview with DJ BISKIT out of Baltimore. All right, ladies and gentlemen, DJ Dan coming to you live from the 8th floor. I am the unusual suspect. After this, we're going to go into the Shazam free zone. Jack?
Get ready. Ladies and gentlemen, I am DJ Dan, Soulful House Nation, coming to you live from the 8th floor. I am the unusual suspect. This is Soulful House Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I am super excited. Our next guest, our interviewee, I met about a year ago, like last April. And I walked into the place and, I don't know if I heard of him, but, of course I heard of his name in passing. But I got to tell you something. The man was on fire. Matter of fact, if the man, he couldn't hold if he put a piece of paper in the hand, the paper would have burned up. That's how hot he was in there. So I'm super excited to have you, DJ BISKIT. How you doing, sir?
How you doing, sir? Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to start off with the easy stuff, and then we're going to pick up the pace. And, just for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, that kind of stuff like that, background.
Well, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
Be more in the house. Be more in the house, man.
Yeah.
I was actually born in D.C., but I was raised in Baltimore.
Okay.
I've been DJing for 47 years. I started when I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
And been doing it for a long time. And that's just a little bit about me. I've always loved music. So, DJ is my passion. And, Baltimore to the heart.
Okay. So now, how did you get started with music? I mean, because, some people hear music, some people don't. How did you get started with music?
Well, music was always played in my house when I was growing up. My mom and dad always had music playing. I've always loved music, enjoyed the melodies and things like that. So, music has always been a part of my life. So it's always been there.
Okay. Now, who were some of your early influences? And I mean, like, let's say maybe, well, you mentioned your family, but now also were there any people, let's say on the radio or commercially or whatever, other family members that, any?
Mostly my mom, my dad,
Okay.
my uncle, who was very instrumental in shaping of my musical taste, so to speak.
Okay.
The neighborhood that I lived in, shaped my musical taste. Everybody, like all kids, we listen to the radio.
Mm-hmm.
But the early influences, my mom, dad, and probably my uncle.
Okay. Now, what's interesting is that, I would tell you that for me, it was my two aunts. So my parents weren't really checking for music like that. So let's say they would have heard of, like, back in the day, like Michael Jackson, because he was in the news, but they never would have heard of an R. Kelly, or they never would have heard of people like that they would have never heard of.
Right.
And so I had Aunt Seal and Aunt Bert, who turned me on to music. They were into the up-to-date music of the time. So name some of the people too that you listened to back in the day.
Well, my favorite group coming up was Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh, okay.
I'm a big Earth, Wind, and Fire fan, and that was because my uncle, my early influences, he was a big Earth, Wind, and Fire fan, and they're one of my favorite groups. I grew up with all the 70s groups and musicians and vocalists and things like that. So I was shaped from a very early age. My mom and dad, they grew up in the 50s and 60s, so it was Motown. Always in the house playing, that type of stuff. There was jazz, the blues and stuff like that. But out of all the groups, I have to say Earth, Wind, and Fire is my actual favorite.
Okay.
And so, big Earth, Wind, and Fire fan. So.
Okay. Now, hey, that's a good choice.
Yeah. Mainly because of the musicianship.
Yeah.
Of the band itself, and how they made music and the kind of music and, like I said, the different melodies and things like that just really, really tickled my fancy, so to speak. So,
right. Well, what else too about Earth, Wind, and Fire? They had the spectrum in terms of the vocals and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And they did slow stuff. They did fast stuff.
Right.
Now, I'm gonna hit you with an Earth, Wind, and Fire. I know you know this track, but this was a big song back in the day,
Mhm.
and it kind of fell off in terms. I don't know. It never went. I don't think it ever went mainstream. But like, if you were into Earth, Wind, and Fire like me, you knew about this track. Remember Power?
Yep.
That song? Okay. Now I got to tell you something. First of all, I'm getting goosebumps talking to you, by the way, just so you know.
Right.
Anyway, this is exciting. So I remember Power when I was a kid, which was not too long ago.
Mhm.
Anyway, they would play Power, but now as I learned how to DJ, I got to tell you something. Because they were playing instruments, that was a hard record. Well, now when I go back, I have a hard record to mix.
Yeah, well, it's because there's actual real musicians playing.
Yes.
The tracks are not quantized. When I started, I guess when we started, we mixed vinyl.
Yes.
You had to learn, and back then, the music wasn't quantized like it is now.
Mhm.
There was actually musicians, playing, so it wasn't exactly on beat.
Right.
So you had to learn, early you had to actually learn how to ride the pitch. One of the skills you had to learn, you had to ride the pitch and actually, do the best you can to bring in the music. So that was a skill, using your ears, that I think that a lot of the newer DJs who have never played on vinyl really lack thereof. They're too busy staring at the screen and looking at waves and looking at that, but they don't use their ears to, it's a skill that you develop, playing on vinyl and playing on turntables, especially belt drive turntables. Some of the stuff that so I played on. So but my favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire record is Fantasy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Fantasy. I like especially the version that I love to play is the I think it's the Danny Krivit version.
Okay.
He kind of breaks it down.
I think
Starts off, he's got like the parts of the record, and he redid the whole thing, and he starts off it. But yeah, Fantasy is my favorite record. It's my favorite all-time favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire record. So
okay, interesting.
Yeah.
They have such a catalog. It's really incredible.
Exactly.
Wow. Just to run one more thing past you along those lines, you really did have to learn. You really had to really learn that music, and you can develop skill sets that help you to move with it, and the pitch, but still, you really had to learn that music only because you kind of had to know when that drummer, I don't want to say missed that beat, but when that drummer didn't hit that beat exactly
right
like here. And
he wasn't exactly in the pocket. Because now here's the other thing that a lot of people don't know about me. Before I became a DJ, when I was younger, I played the drums. I learned how to play the drums.
Okay.
So I know how to count beats and and the whole how to one your legs going one way and your hands so I learned how to count playing the drums 1 2 3 4 and staying in the pocket,
right,
so yeah, when you're mixing sometimes that drummer is not in the pocket,
right
step off, so you got to move that pitch to just so it's a skill. It was a skill that you learned. So
yeah, quickly. And what else is interesting is that average Joe didn't know that, but certainly other musicians would hear it, and certainly DJs trying to mix over that stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's like I said, it's a skill, but it was fun to learn it. Because if you're good at it, you've accomplished something.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I gotta ask you this question, okay? And I think if I did this interview and I didn't ask the question, then I think they would ban me from the internet. Okay, here we go. So how did you get the name Biscuit?
That name is that's a childhood nickname that my friends gave me
Okay.
a long time ago. The spelling, I changed the spelling when I became a DJ because I didn't like the Biscuit. I didn't like that.
Okay.
I just changed up the spelling. It's a childhood game. Because I was young, I was heavy set. And one day they came to get me to go play some football. They came to the back door, and it was just about dinner time. And in front of me was sitting a whole plate of biscuits.
Oh, okay.
Biscuits in front of me, right? So your friends being smart asses, and me being a little chunky. Yo, that's your new nickname. It's Biscuit. We're gonna start calling you Biscuit, and it stuck. Through elementary school and middle school. When I became a DJ, I just started to use it. So it stuck. So that's where the name came from. And I changed the name just because I didn't like that SCUIT. I didn't like that.
Right. But it's always amazing. Like, so my name is Danny Shiver, actually, but everybody calls me Dan. Like, and I could tell people who knew me from back in the day because they call me Danny. And because that's actually, a lot of people think my real name is Daniel, but it's not. It's actually Danny.
Okay.
And if you knew my mother, you would get it. She said, "Listen, they're gonna call you Danny anyway." So she just that's with her flow like that.
Right. But what they did with mine, they made variations of the word biscuit to call me. When I was younger. So if you know me for forever, since I was a kid, and the variations of the name, that's how I knew you knew me from the beginning.
Yeah, when you hear the certain words. Yeah. And now, speaking of how things stuck, so my DJ name is Dan Dan. And the way that happened was, so I had my first godson. And our parents go, like that.
Right.
So they would go, this is Dan Dan. And it stuck. So here I am. First of all, I only publicly admit to being 26 years old, by the way.
Okay.
All these years later, I'm DJ Dan Dan. So I guess I'm always curious to hear those kind of things and the origins of name, and then too, what sticks. And so anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
I get you. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Let me ask you the next question. All right. And if we have time, then I want to come back to a question because you sparked a thought in my head. But where do you see house music going?
It depends on where you live.
Okay.
It seems to me like it's popular everywhere but the U.S. We have our pockets in the states here. New York, Jersey, Baltimore, D.C., Chicago, Atlanta. There's some in Cali. You got Detroit with the techno sound. Even Charlotte has got their little It's got their little scene popping up. I said Atlanta. I'm speaking specifically the black house, as I call it,
right?
SOULFUL house. But it's not. I'm surprised. At one time, house music was played on the radio. It was very popular.
Right.
In the 90s, it was popular. Because house was you had house artists on major labels,
right?
But now it's just what you hear on the radio is that stuff. But anyway, but yeah, I just think where it's headed. It, like I said, depends on where you're at.
Okay.
One of the things I've seen here in Baltimore is that I think there's been a lot of younger folks starting to get into it.
Oh, really?
Do it their own way.
Which
you got to give them the grace to do that because everybody has their own way of interpreting it and how they dance to it and what they do. So I embrace it. And you know, because one way or another, we got to keep this thing going.
Right.
You know, but in other parts of the world, the house is huge.
Right.
You got Africa, South Africa, the UK, you know, France, even Australia has a nice scene. You know, everybody embraces it. You know, and you know, in the UK, you know, it's just on the radio. It's on, you know, like, you know, major radio stations. You know, and it's, you know, the DJs over here, they go play over there and get paid. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
Right.
excuse me. So, I think that I think the youth, there's some youth that's getting into it, but what I don't like is that, you know, we look at them and say, no, you can't do it. That's not how you do it. This is how you do it. But, you know, nah, you don't. Let them do it their way.
Right.
Embrace it their way and let them interpret it the way they want to, you know, and so they can start their own thing and keep it going.
Right.
You know, just keep the core, you know, tenets, you know, but let them embrace it and do that thing. That's what I think. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see, you know.
You know what's interesting about what you said, because you know what? I'm sure you hear this too. We got to bring younger people in. We got to do this. We got to do that. But I have a couple thoughts and just want to see, you know, how you see this. Again, you know, you want to bring them in, but are you willing to listen to the way they do it? Or does it have to be the way you want it? Okay. The second thing I laugh about sometimes, you know, is that, you know, for the most part, like like the younger people play for older people. It's almost like having, I'm going to call it, just till I think of some better words, like that prodigy kid who is able to do these kind of adult things. But it seems like, to your point, like it's got to sound a certain way, it's got to have a certain flow. It's like if you really want them to come in, are you willing to let them flow?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. When I hire, like I know you're talking about, you know, like the younger DJs like Just and Amir, the guy J Rock out of Chicago.
Sure.
You know, we got a couple here in Baltimore. We got Jordan Pope. We got Blue Angel. A couple other ones. You know, I try to tell them. I said, listen, you know, you come play for us. You playing for the old folks. I said, what you need to do. I said, you need to play for your peers.
Right.
You can play for your peers and bring them in and build your crowd and build your legacy, you know, that way. You know, we're going to be gone. You know, you can't keep playing for us. You know, you got to play for your peers, people your age in the 20s and stuff like that. You got to introduce them to the music, and bring them along and build your following. You know, that's what I tell them all the time, you know. So a few of them are doing it here, you know. I said a couple young, like I said, we got a couple youngs here, like Blue Angel and Jordan and K Young. K Young is DJ Spin's son. You know, he's got his own little following. You know, Jordan is he went to Morgan. You know, just like his dad.
Okay.
Brian Pope, and you know he's got his own little following, and Blue Angel has her own little social house thing going. You know, so they're building their own crowd.
Right,
you know,
right.
That's what you need.
Right.
But so, like I said, when I booked them to come play at one of my parties, I was like, no, play how you play. That's why I bought you. I want you to play how you play, and to my people, because because some of your people are here to follow you, but I want you to play so they can hear you.
Right.
You know, just do you. Don't try to do me. Nobody can do me. You know, so that's what I think. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, again, listen. I hope you don't mind, but you're making so many thoughts pop into my head. All right. So listen to this now. Okay, so now think about this for a minute. I think a lot of times, like I call myself the unusual suspect. And the reason being because at many events, you have, I'm going to call them the usual suspects. And I say that with love because it takes a lot to become what a usual suspect. That means you got to have a proven track record. People know if they bring you in, certain things are going to happen. It's kind of like set it and forget it. But one of the challenges, and I don't know what a line is, but when you're not bringing in new blood, a lot of times you don't get fresh perspectives.
Right.
The other thing too that happens is that many times that new blood wants to, at some level, imitate the people who are the proven performers, so to speak. I call them with love the usual suspects because they know that works. Right. And there's a line there. I don't know what that line is, where you say, okay, I understand. Let's say I'm gonna call it like I think in exercise or whatever they call it, you got like the mandatory stuff, but then there's the point you get creative. And so that's kind of there's that fine line. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree. What I do is if I bring somebody in, because I have a monthly party called Elevation. If I bring you in, there's a reason why I bring you in. I heard something in you that's different. I'm bringing you into the people that follow me because I think they'll like you. So what I tell the DJs, when I bring them in, I said, listen, like I just told you, don't do me.
Okay.
Do you.
Right.
I want you to do you. Play how you want to play how you play. Don't try to do me.
Gotcha.
Okay, because the crowd is going to recognize it and be like, okay, this dude's just he's trying to be like Biscuit. And if I bring you in, do you. Don't worry about and play what you want to play. Don't worry about me. I got 50-some years of music that I can play. I'll figure it out.
Right.
So just go ahead and do you. So that's the first thing. That's what you got to tell them. To give them that little confidence. Okay, he wants me here to do me. But if you're doing you, and the crowd is not responding to you, then it's not about trying to do me. It's about playing, okay, let me play something different than what I'm playing now. You got to play an old standard, play an old favorite, to get them back.
Right.
You go back to doing you. That's called programming.
Right.
Programming. You learn programming, being a DJ through your 10 years of DJ, reading the crowd and, because I play all genres. I play multiple genres. I also play house music. I have a residency on Saturday night.
Okay.
All right, where I do open format. So I could play anything. So that's why I try to tell them. I said, you gotta play all the genres. Right. And because number one, that keeps you paid. Number two,
it's a little thing, right?
It makes you well rounded,
Right.
So just gotta let them know. That's all.
Yeah, I know you know Mark Francis, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I opened up for Mark, and one of the things he said to me is similar to what you're saying. He says, Dan, first of all, do you? And he says, don't be concerned about playing whatever, you consider your hottest stuff, to get people reacting to. Because you know what? He says, there's so much music out here. I'm not even concerned about that.
Right.
So, and I tell you what, though, I think that's kind of a big deal. And from the standpoint that that's how confident he's in his skill set. Right. That's how confident he is in terms of his knowledge of music. And, the other part of it on a personal level is he wants me to shine. So, he wanted me to shine. So,
yeah. And, for people like, like Mark Francis, who is a producer like he is. I'm pretty sure it's all he's got something up his sleeve that he knows you don't have, that he's going to drop. So he's not worrying about that, And with me, I get so much music sent to me, producers, early. So you're going to play something. I know I'm going to have some stuff that you don't have that I'm going to drop. And so I'm not worried about that, And I can go back 10 years and pick something out that hasn't been heard in 10 years and burn the crowd up.
Right.
Brand new. So, that's just the experience of being a DJ. That's all. So
Right. To your point, so I'm not saying he's the first one that ever played it, but I will tell you it's the first time I ever played it. Talking about, pulling the, something up the sleeve. He played the A-Can. When he played that Cairo, when I tell you, the crowd went crazy. Right. It was the first time I heard it, and right off the bat, I was like, "Oh shucks, what is this?" And I was like, "Mark, put me up on this. What is this?" And so your ability, and again, that comes too with experience too, and just having that wide that wide breadth of music. So, that was all right. Okay, yeah. Now, how about this? So let's talk about your beginnings in house music. How did you get into house music?
Well, I was hip hop before I was house.
Okay.
So because when hip hop was out, I was, in my area in Baltimore where I grew up, you had to learn how to play all the genres, So back then in the 80s, the early 80s, you had hip hop, you had the R&B, R&B dance music. You had the burgeons of reggae coming to dance hall coming up. Plus you had top 40. Right. Then you had the Italo disco records.
Right.
And so I had to learn how to play everything. But when house music came out, I first heard it at this club here in Baltimore called Odell's.
Heard of that?
Odell's is like the garage in New York and Zanzibar and New Jersey. It's like the foundation.
Okay.
One of those clubs is like the foundation. So, and I heard it there. And Odell's had the same sound engineer as the garage. Richard Long, yeah. Richard Long put the sound system in Odell's. So the sound system was top notch. And back then, you playing vinyl, so it's all analog. So the sound coming out there, and I heard the first record I heard was an actual house music record. Was Music Is the Key. Okay. That's the first house record I heard. And I was like, what is that? What in the blue monkey is that? So, and then I started hearing more stuff, and I just fell in love with it, and loving the music, I just pulled it in to everything else I was playing, and just went from there, man. And the more house music started to blow up, the house music records coming out of Chicago, the track records, DJ International, all the labels coming out of Chicago at the time. And then you had New York joining in, So, and then by the 90s, those Chicago labels were starting to thin out. New York was taking over, Strictly Rhythm. Right. And a few others up there, making house music. And so it's, I just jumped into it, and, I liked it. I loved it because of the sound, man, that came out of the speakers at Odell's, man. It was just way better than the hip hop and, the rest of the records. This is that 4 to the floor was just like kicking your ass, man. with the subs, the Bertha subs, and I was like, "Jeez, man!" So that's how I got into it. My man, the guy that introduced me to it at Odell's was Tony Fashaw.
Okay.
He was the resident there. He became a resident after the legend Wayne Davis was the resident before that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I grew up on Tony Fashaw going on to Odell's, and then of course other clubs opened up, and so that's how I got into house music.
Well, to a person, I've done over 300 interviews with people in the house music community, and to a person, including me, we have hip hop in our background.
Right.
We have hip hop in our background, and so to hear you, you're like, okay, keep it going.
Yeah.
Now, how about this? Okay, so like most people don't DJ, maybe they dance, whatever. What made you decide that you weren't just going to listen to music or even dance, but you had to be on the decks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? What made you decide that you wanted to play versus just listen or dance?
Because I like the way the DJ controlled the people, made the music control the people. I wanted to control the people.
Mm.
I wanted to make them dance, and and when you're a DJ, you feed off the energy of the dancers.
Absolutely.
And I love that feeling. Ever since I first started, you make the people dance, and you just love to. I wasn't a big dancer.
Yeah.
I like to be up on the women, that type of thing. But I wasn't a big dancer. I couldn't do all the house dancing like everybody else did. But I love to make people move. I love that feeling of controlling the people, programming the music to make these people lose their minds. And when I saw the DJs do that, I was like, that's
that's for me, huh?
That's what I want to do. I want to do that right there. So
yeah. I can relate to it because I was DJ 1-2, DJ 101 and a 2, and that was all you really gonna get out of head nodding and stuff like that. But yeah, and you know what? It's so funny you say that because so a lot of people around DJs, I don't know if they understand, like they hear us, but I don't know if they understand at a very, very deep level why you feel compelled to do this. And it's like, and when you get in that flow, forget about it. You just like, you just straight out. And, and sometimes like, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I just need to get it off my chest. If you work with me 1 minute here, sometimes like you play and then sometimes you play. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you can go out on such a limb because that crowd is following you.
Right.
And you're connecting and anyway, well,
Well, it's like don't matter whatever. It doesn't matter what you play, they love it.
Yeah.
You're in that zone. So, but the catalyst of that is, but you have to. It's like why you do what you do is first the catalyst of that. The base is that you have to love music.
Without a doubt.
You have to love music. That's the catalyst of it right there. So if you love music, then you love what you do. Then it just kind of flows from there. So.
Now, who were some of your early DJ influences, and who do you think is speaking to you now?
Well, my early influences came from where I grew up at in Baltimore, Northwood. It was a lot. It was a few young DJs there that were doing some things there. But as I got older and started hitting some of the clubs, like I said, my early influences were like Tony Fashaw.
Yeah.
My man Spin when he was at the New Marks, on the hip hop side.
Yes.
He was hip hop too before he became house. He was a serious turntablist. Some of the people that was on the radio, like Jeffrey C. He was on the radio. He's on WEDB early. So it's today, who I like, who influenced me, still spin, doing his thing.
Mm-hmm.
A man here in Baltimore, KW Griff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, KW still doing his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Davis,
Mm-hmm.
People that we looked up to like Wayne Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Even like Ultra, she's doing her thing. Ultra Nate, she's doing her thing.
Mm-hmm.
Him and locally,
Hmm.
that influenced me. So that still influenced me today.
Yeah, but it's funny because so I haven't interviewed Ultra, but I have interviewed Spen. I've interviewed Tommy Day. Matter of fact, I just had I was in Baltimore, I'll say about 3 weeks ago, give or take, and Tommy and I had dinner, and we talked it up, and then also too, So what's interesting too is that from here, unless you're into house music, you don't really know how deep the bench is in Baltimore.
Right.
It's very easy to miss that.
Right.
But you got this whole thing going on down there. Crazy.
Including, like Tommy and Span, Jefferson, Ultra, and Wayne. Then you got DJ Pope, DJ OG, who was very instrumental in the scene here in Baltimore, because when they were at Morgan, they used to run the radio station WEAA, and they had this show called The Underground Experience. That was playing house music there. That was very, very instrumental in the shaping of the Baltimore scene. And here during the 90s. The early stages of house, the 90s and late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. So DJ Pope, DJ OG. Who else is here? Who isn't here? It's definitely a deep bench coming out of Baltimore. We're all bangers. Baltimore's the house is this little thing that we says it's like we have our own little saying. It's like in Baltimore, you go hard or you go home.
Okay.
So that's how we get down here. So
yeah. Now, how about this? How about some people that you played with, and is there anybody that you want to play with?
I played with a lot of people already. Like you see me play with Louis. Louis actually we just played. He was back here early March. Played with him again, which was pretty cool because we did him spinning out. We did back to back to back. So we was so that was pretty cool. That was pretty good with Louis. I just got back from Ghana.
Oh, okay.
And early March also, like that Sunday we did the party with Louis, and that Thursday I was in Ghana for the Afro Soul Fest. DJ Stress and Charmaine. I got invited down there, and I was playing with Timmy Registry.
Okay.
I played with Timmy. I played with Ian Friday, Mark Lewis down there, Dwayne Powell. I was playing with them down there. So So it was that was the trip of a lifetime there in Ghana.
Okay.
So
so since you mentioned that, was it the same? Was it different? Or what was the same? What was different? Playing in Ghana versus playing in the US or playing in Baltimore? Was the flow the same? Was it different, or what was the same? What was it different? It was
the same. It was because what they did they took a big group of people down there. Yeah, so everybody that was there was from the US.
Gotcha.
So, but the in the place that we played, the locals joined in, and they partied to the same music, because I'm into Afrobeat and Amapiano.
Okay.
I'm into that too because the younger crowd is into like the Afrobeat and Amapiano. So I'm really into that. And my Saturday night gig, I play the Afrobeat and Amapiano for them. Do sets of those. But yeah, it's but I loved it down there, in Ghana. It was an experience that I recommend everybody, if you have a chance to get to the motherland, get to Ghana, to go to Africa, you should go. Definitely should go. All the stereotypes that people lob at them, at the people, it's false.
False, gotcha.
It is false. It is false. It is, they're beautiful people. It's a beautiful country. We were in the capital of Accra, and I wouldn't have known if I was in New York or Baltimore or DC or Jersey. It's the same. It's progressive. So I wouldn't mind moving down there if I could. It was like that. So, and plus you're surrounded by everybody that look like you. So, but it was a good look down there. So
now let me ask you a question. Do they drive on the right side or the wrong side?
No, they drive the same side we do.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Now other parts of Africa, like if you go like South Africa, they drive on the right side.
Yeah. Okay.
They drive on the left side. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We drive on the right side. They drive. Yeah. So it depends on what part of the continent, what country you go to on the continent. Decides, but Ghana, they drive on the right side, just like us.
I just want to pivot for a minute and talk about equipment. We could talk about equipment. I mean, so you've been in it from the door in terms of this whole house thing, and you went from I know you mentioned belt drives. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
Hey, listen, I had the SLB ones. I had the SLD ones, and I got the 1200s. So, and then of course, and then I'll tell you what. So I went kicking and screaming to the 1200s. I went kicking and screaming to the CDs. I went kicking and screaming to the laptops, kicking and screaming to the flash drive. Which you hear. How do you feel about the evolution of the? And then wait a minute. Okay, don't answer this. In your mind, what's a 4-letter word that starts with S? Now hold it in your mind. I know what you're thinking. Sync, right? No, okay. So what are your thoughts on the evolution of? And now you know what I'm saying, especially now. Serato just came out to take it mainstream. Not that you couldn't before. As a matter of fact, I met this gentleman, Phil Morris, I think is his name. Yeah, Phil Morris. And at Atlantic City, they do the DJ convention. And he said the future is going to be streaming. And now you had companies like Algorithm and DJ, which is DJ Pro and stuff doing that. But now Serato has got a big push on to do streaming. What's your thought?
They just added Apple Music.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't like it because the streaming depends on your Wi-Fi signal. Okay, and that Wi-Fi signal could be interrupted by anything. I'm an IT guy. I've been in IT for 30-some years. So
okay, gotcha.
I work for the Fed, so I've been in IT for a while. So it's only as good that signal is only as good as your Wi-Fi.
Gotcha.
I don't trust it. If you can get it for maybe a couple records, but I don't trust it. Just put it on my drive, and that way I'll have it there. It's right there locally. I ain't got to worry about that.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's you prepare for that. You spend the week preparing for stuff like that. You look for certain music, you get it, and you put it on your flash drive, your hard drive. That way you have it there.
Right.
Streaming, I'm not big on it, but if that's how you want to roll, knock yourself out. But I like I said, I had belt drives. I had the D2s before I had the 1200s. Got 1200s. 1200, the CDJs came. I migrated to the CDJs because at one time I thought about stopping DJing because I didn't want to carry the records no more. Records are heavy. Records are heavy. Vinyl's heavy, So, but when Serato came out, it was like, okay, extending my career, and I loved it. And then when Record Box came out, and you could put everything on a hard drive,
Right.
carry a computer. Now I still have both, because certain places, like my Saturday night gig, it has a controller there, so I use my Serato on the controller there. So I use the controller. But I own 3000s myself, and a V10. I have a V10, so
Right.
I like the Record Box right there. Plug into the 3000s, and all my music is right there. I can access it, and when I leave, I can just pop it out, pull out my headphones, put it in my bag. I'm out.
You're out. Right.
I'm out. So I like the convenience of it.
Well, I will tell you.
Hold on, wait a minute. And Sync, I think you have, to me personally, you have to earn the right to use Sync.
Okay, talk to me. Explain what you're. Explain
you have to earn the right. If you like me, I don't use Sync because I don't like the not being in control.
Okay.
Because once you put that Sync button on, you're just on. So I like being in control. I like to ride the pitch.
Right.
But if you've been in the game long enough, you carried records, you paid your dues, you've done everything. You carried the records, you moved through all the genres, you do the CDJs and everything. You've earned your due. You can do whatever you want. You hit that sync button, hit the sync button. Go ahead and hit the sync button. But here's the thing. The sync button only matters to DJs. It doesn't matter to the crowd. The crowd don't.
Right.
The crowd don't care what you play on. All they listen for what's coming out the speakers.
Right.
They don't care.
Right.
So play what you want to play on. Be comfortable with what you want to play on, but you got to learn how to still play on everything. You still got to learn to play on the CDJs. You still got to have a laptop. Y'all still have to learn how to play with a controller.
Right.
Still got to have your little vinyl skills. So you got to learn how to play on everything so you can be versatile. Because a lot of the big clubs don't have space where you can come bring your controller and hook in. They're not having that.
Right.
DJs, this is the industry standard. You either play on this or you can go home.
Hey.
So what you gonna do?
You want to play? That's right. Yeah. If you want to play, listen, this is the deal. And if you don't want to play, it's okay. Next.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, it's absolutely right. You know what else too is crazy about it is that when like a lot of times you have talk about controllers. So I have CDJs, but also have a controller. I call it the Go controller. So for all intents and purposes, like I do a lot of mobile stuff. I used to work clubs on a regular, and then I got away from it over the years. So I do a lot of mobile parties. And in the beginning, I was carrying those CDJs, and I tell you what, I needed one time when I took them out, I had to turn. And let me tell you what, when I tell you they almost knocked me down, because you know what it was? I'm sorry, the turntable. Because what it was, and when I was using turntables, the 1200s, and I had the big case, the coffin stuff. Well, I had the muscle memory going on and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know what got into me. I said, you know what? I want to play on, I take out my 1200s. Biscuit, when I tell you, those, I almost fell to the floor because, just handling that. Yeah. I was doing the the CDJs, mobile stuff. And when I found out, it was a lot. And I said, forget that. So now I got a little to-go mixer. And like Tommy Davis, I play on Tractor. I have all of them, but I just settled into Tractor. So I totally agree with you that you really, really, really need to get your skills up on all different ones. And then too, regarding playing, so some records are not going to sync, especially if you play some of the older stuff. So you got to learn to ride that thing. So, it's kind of like, hey, we're clicking on all these cylinders here. Exactly. Interesting. Yeah. Now, I'm sorry. Yeah. How about places that you've played, and is there any place on your bucket list? Now, I know you've been to Ghana, but any other place you want to play, or places that you've played?
I'm waiting on my call for the chosen few. I got a feeling that's
Okay.
I'm speaking that into existence. So the chosen
Okay.
few. I'm supposed to be playing with I think I was playing Beloved this summer up in Jersey at Beloved.
Okay.
What Beloved does, I'm supposed to be playing with him. I got to confirm that. Last year I was up in Trenton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had the Baltimore takeover. It was me, Spin, OG, and my man Cell.
Okay.
I played in a lot of places. I played in Cali, Atlanta, Jersey, New York. So I played a lot of places, but something like the big festival, chosen few is my bucket list,
Okay.
maybe some places in Europe, Spin said I would love playing in Europe, So those type of places, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know Spanish played in Croatia. I think it's played in the UK. Also too. Obviously, Jihad and then Jihad and Beloved. So, and I know Jihad plays in Europe. Mark Francis plays in Europe too, and he was playing in South Africa within the last year, give or take. So, and I know he's played in. So, I can relate to that.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How about this? I know you produce also, right? Name some things that you produce, and do you have a preference for producing or playing?
As far as what I produced a couple quite a few tracks. I did did an album did an EP for Quantize, that's his label. EP for OG's label, which is Poji Records. Passport Records, done a couple joints on there. My preference is the DJ.
Okay, all right.
I haven't, I've slacked off on the producing, but I'm getting back into it, working on some stuff. But I prefer the DJ. So yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, now, okay. I'm saying this and I'm speaking into existence like you're doing. So I have like some of the top software. I have Logic. I have Ableton Live, the full version, Native Instruments. GarageBand came with my laptop, my MacBook. Finally, so Jeffrey C. and I just got to say, Jeffrey C., let me keep it real with you. I had some couple, whatever, a couple little things in there. And then Jeffrey C. went on and put the thing together. And so I want to produce, because, sometimes I hear things that I would do to a song. I hear things that maybe I'd like to do. I hear people sing that I would like to do. But you know what it is, and I don't know if you know Shino Black also, if you know him.
Yep.
Okay. So I interviewed him, and I won't say he made a mistake. I made the statement I'm making now, and he says, "Well, okay, Dan, let's go." And but the challenge for me has been, it really takes, you gotta like stop what you're doing, and you gotta really put the time in. Now, once you get it down, then fine. I'm sure if you talk to Beloved or what, I mean, they could sit down in minutes. They could come up with a concept or whatever. You got to work it out, whatever. But I got to tell you, there's got to be that. You got to have that. I'm going to say, you got to devote that time to it. Whether it's like a week, a month, you got to put everything aside, whatever you got to do, but you got to do that. I haven't been able to do that.
Right.
Now, let me rephrase that. I haven't done that. Put it that way. So
yeah, you definitely got to put the time in. So it takes time out of your day to do that. Once you learn it, you'll get it down pat, and then you'll be off to the races.
Yeah. Now, I have a few more questions. We're gonna come in for a soft landing. how did you get into the scene, the Baltimore scene? Because, and the reason I asked that question is because some people are very excited and they really never leave their bedroom. Like, how did you get into the scene?
Well, I started off doing basement parties.
Okay.
You know, in the community, the neighborhood that I grew up in, I started doing basement parties there. Then I started doing the rec parties, and I got a shot in an after-hour club. Back then when they used to have after-hour clubs. And then when I was in after-hours clubs, and then I got a club gig at this spot called Silver Shadows in Columbia, Maryland.
Okay.
And when that came about, that kind of like put me on a trajectory because Silver Shadow was a major club, and what it also had, they broadcasted live out of the club onto the radio.
Oh, yeah.
So once that happened in the live broadcast, that really shot me into into orbit, so to speak. And then I started throwing my own parties, specifically house music parties, because like at one time, the scene was kind of slowing down. And I started throwing my own parties, and those became successful. And then I was part of a group that started this thing called Collective Minds.
Okay, with Tommy Davidson.
Yeah, I was the first president of Collective Minds.
Okay.
I was the first president. Then I stepped down because I also coached basketball. So I left because my daughter was playing. So I coached basketball, and Tommy took over as president.
Okay.
So, Collective Minds, we throw the big house music festival every year. And this year will be our 23rd year. So I'm still a part of that. So, things got better. And that's how, and then things just started coming. I started doing more parties and, that thing. So, and here I am.
Okay. So let me ask this question here. So I'm Billy Bob, whatever, and I wanna play whatever. Like if you had to say, hey, Billy Bob, if you really want to get into this thing and make this thing pop, like here's what you need to do. What would you say, sort of like some success steps, or, maybe in order, maybe not in order, but just some things that you need to do, assuming you have the skill set.
Okay. First, you have to acquire the skill set.
Right.
You have to be good at your craft.
Got you.
And then what I would say was align yourself with people who are in the scene doing the same thing. Show up at the parties. Show your face at the parties if you can. So some people can't do all that stuff or don't like to go out.
Right.
But get with some like-minded folks who have the same ambitions, and try. If you're not getting the results that you're looking for, throw your own party. And throwing your own party will let you know if people are checking for you. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And I tell people all the time. I said, look, I have elevation every month. I said I only have 12 parties a year with elevation, so I can't, and everybody, ever since COVID, everybody's a daggone DJ now.
Right.
Everybody got a laptop, got a controller, and got some music, and everybody's a DJ now. So they think they can do what we've been doing forever. Just come in because the computer does the work for you. That's one of the pet peeves I have about coming in now. But if you think you got the goods, get with some like-minded people, throw your own party, and see who comes.
Right.
Okay. Now here's the thing. Most people are going to come if you throw them free parties. Most people are going to come to a free party.
Right.
The measure is when you start charging.
Can you get people to pay?
Get people to pay. I've been doing elevation. I've been doing the monthly party elevation. Me and my man Steve, we doing elevation we're in our 9th year. You know, we charge $20, and we're packed every month. So that means that we have a product that people want to pay money for.
Right.
Okay. Now I understand that free parties are they have their place.
Right.
Especially now coming up with this knucklehead in office right now, with everything going on. You never know, because people are having a hard time making ends meet, but they still want to have a good time. So the free parties are good, but if you really want to find out if people mess with you, they really follow you, charge and see if they pay to come see you. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, I've been around for a long time. I built up my brand, in the Baltimore area, and people know it's a brand that you can trust. We're going to give you a good quality product. You're going to get what you came for, so they're willing to pay it. But you can't just come out of nowhere and expect that. You got to build your brand.
Right.
My brand forever. Building my brand is like being on the radio, playing in these clubs, going out and schmoozing with the heavyweights, president of Collective Minds, being a part of Collective Minds, and been throwing my parties. So it's a brand you can trust.
Right. Got you.
So that's what you got to do. So.
Got you. I got to tell you something. This is some sage wisdom here. I know those two go together somewhat. This is some sage advice. That's what I want to say. Because, I joke, but I don't joke. I have fun, like calling the usual suspects. But again, I've interviewed Jihad, but he's been out there 30 plus years.
Right.
I've interviewed Beloved. He's been out there 30 years. I mean, I could go on. Mark's been out there for years. Naeem Johnson's been out there for years.
Yeah.
These are people that I'm gonna call them, are big in my area. These people, of course, them down there.
Right.
But if you look at Spen's been around a long time. Tommy Davis around a long time.
Yeah.
Louis Vega around a long. These cats have been out there for years. And and my attitude has always been that. Because I do a lot of interviews, and some people feel like that people have to put them on. Oh, I've been in the game for 150 years, and they don't want to put me on because they know what I could do. And I say to myself, well, you know what? I said, well, if they don't put you on, if they're spending their money, their time, their energy, and their money, and they got to make their best judgment, they have a right to put on who they want to put on. Right. And if you don't make the team or don't make the cut, and you can say, oh, it's politics. I got all that. But, nothing's stopping you from going out and doing what you want to do. Oh, it's hard. Yeah, of course it's hard. What do you expect?
Right.
What do you expect?
Right.
And you can have the goods, but if you can't pull, I have a buddy.
The following, yeah. And nowadays, it's about how many people, how many followers you have. People that will actually come out and pay if you play. Because the promoter, I'm a promoter. I'm like, look, I put you on. And who are you going to bring besides the 150, 200 people that come out? Are you going to bring an extra 20, 30, 40, 50 people to come see you to make sure they're paying you?
Right.
Or you're just coming to play for my people.
Gotcha.
Nobody's coming to hear you, but you want to play for. I said that's not. You're not adding any value to the brand. To what I'm trying to do. So that's why certain people get booked, because even though they might not have been out there as long as you, they built up their little brand and built up their little following, and they're valued to promoter.
Right.
Like promoters like the commercial promoters. I'm not talking about the house promoter. I'm talking about the commercial promoters, the ones that do the commercial parties. They book me to do a house set, and I charge them a certain amount, and they know they're gonna be able to pay me because I know I'm gonna bring in 50 people that's gonna come in to hear that, in addition to what they do. So it's worth it. I'm not bragging, but that's the reason why they do it. And the people, they be getting mad at me. Well, why you keep booking Biscuit? I said because he's gonna bring in 50 people, extra people, to hear him play. You ain't gonna bring nobody in. So that's how I do. You got to bring somebody. You got to add some value to the party.
Right.
If you're not adding any value to the party, why am I putting you down? That's how it is today. And I talk to all the promoters, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing now. How many people can you bring?
And you pull.
Yeah.
Listen, people. Yeah, I mean, she hasn't been doing it lately, but Paris Hilton. Oh, she can't play. She can't do this. And they pay. Listen, but when she showed up.
Yep.
Showed up, the place is packed. Bottles are popping.
Exactly. She's a value added. She's a value
That's
added
right.
commodity to the party, and people come out to see it. They just come out. They just want to see her. They don't care what she plays. They just want to look at her. Oh my God, Paris Hilton is here. Oh my God, but that's the value,
right?
And it might suck for the scene.
Okay. But listen,
promoters are in to make money.
Hey, it's a business.
It's a business.
And so, like I say, when I hear people say these things to me all the time, I go, yeah, you have the goods. And even with me, I say to myself, well, but can you pull? Okay, you got the goods, but can you pull?
Right.
Cool, yeah, and if you can't pull, and then to go to the next level, can you pull for money?
Exactly.
So, interesting. Yeah. What's on the horizon for you that you can share?
Of course, I have my monthly elevation party. That's every first Friday. Got this thing called Baltimore by Baltimore coming up in August. Of course, Collective Minds is every Labor Day, Labor Day weekend, Labor Day Sunday here in Baltimore. Part of this little collective called SCB that we throw little events. Outdoor events during the warm weather time, so we got some things coming up, that type of stuff. So just follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky. Also, you can follow me on Mixcloud, SoundCloud, and Twitch. When I'm not out in them streets, I'll jump on Twitch and stream on Fridays. If I got the time, if I'm not out in them streets, running them streets, in them streets doing gigs. So that's how you can follow me.
This last thought just popped into my head. So back in the day, say when you started, you had the promoters, but they had postcards, they had flyers, they had all kinds of stuff like that. Word of mouth, of course. Sign. But now, I'm not saying people don't do that at some level, but more and more, it's gone to social media. What are your thoughts on that? And
that's the way to promote now. That's the way I promote, social media. Now, over the years, I've acquired a very extensive email list also, that I still contact, but mostly on, social media, Facebook, Instagram, you tag people to the parties, post the digital flyers up, tag people on there. That's basically how you do it now. I'm not out in those streets posting hazmat flyers, man. I'm not doing that. So we also have a cruise that we do every year.
Okay.
House Music Hills at CB. It's in November 8th through the 16th this year. And if you go to housemusichills@c.com, you still have time to book to book a trip. You can do payment installments for this year. So that's something that this is our third year doing, and this has always been a success. So.
Well, that's all right. Well, any final thoughts or anything you'd like to highlight?
No, just thanks for having me, man. I hope everybody, got to know me a little bit, where I'm at. Come to Baltimore. Baltimore's got a nice little popping little scene, You know, we doing some things, like
Right.
she does her deep sugar parties and her rooftop parties now that the weather's warming up. So it's a lot going on. Just follow me. I
Right.
post most of the parties and everything. So just, come on down.
Now, what's your Instagram, your Facebook? What is
DJ
that?
Biscuit.
Well,
Yep. DJ
okay.
Biscuit.
DJ BISKIT. Okay.
Whatever.
All right. And for me, anything you got, you send me, tag me, or whatever. I'll put it right out there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Appreciate you having me, man.
Hey, listen, this was a good look for me. I got to tell you, I'm so happy you did this, and again, we met a year ago, really.
Right.
And, but, they say, the right time is when the right time is. Anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. DJ Dan, Soulful House Nation. I'm coming to you live from the 8th floor. I am the unusual suspect. Get ready, get ready, get ready. All right, DJ BISKIT. Thanks again. All right.
Thanks a lot, man. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. All right.
Bye.
Hey, baby.